Good afternoon. My name is Warren Peterson, and I am going to be talking about the Nakirema and reflecting on this article and also describing an event in our culture that may be seen differently in other cultures. So the article on the Nakirema, it was a very interesting read. And at first glance, these people seem to be an ancient society that practice and believe in very magical belief systems. The Nakirima believe in seeing certain people in their society, such as the mouth man, or they also have the medicine man, they have the listener, and the witch doctor. Um, but the more I thought about this, I realized that this actually sounded like more of a modern society. The mouth man could kind of be seen as a dentist, medicine man, a doctor, the listener, a counselor. Um, I began to realize this may actually be a satirical article on our culture itself, because when you look at the word Nakirema and then you look at it backwards, it actually spells American. And I did research on that, and it appears that that is true. So this provides an interesting view of context. Providing context as this society being ancient led us to believe that many of the things they practices were odd and sadistic, and they believed in magic. But it was really just the context that led us to believe that. So there's an event that I thought about that seems to create some controversy in different cultures. And this event is the idea of tipping. In American culture, everybody must tip. In fact, many people only work for tips. We view it as rude and impolite if you don't tip somebody. If somebody at a restaurant serves you and they do a great job, not tipping them could say that we thought they did a rubbish job serving us. So, in our view, we must always tip people. And it's a view that I also agree with, as my work also relies on tips. And without tips, I wouldn't be able to make a living. Um, However, in other societies, this view is not the same. Um, in places such as Japan and South Korea, tipping can be seen as an insult. In those countries, workers feel that they're getting paid to do their job, and they take pride in doing it well. They don't need the added incentive. In the American culture, it seems unusual to think that anybody else could think that tipping was offensive. And so I found myself asking, why would they view receiving extra money for their work as offensive? Well, as it turns out, when you tip somebody at a restaurant in Japan, they see it as insulting, because it's in a way saying to them that you don't think they make a livable wage. And that can seem demeaning. And that's something I can understand. So if I ever go to Japan, I will make sure not to tip. I also did some more reading on the subject, and it would appear that it is also important to never insist that somebody accept your tip. Because in some situations of employment, for some of the workers in these countries, it may be forbidden as a condition of their employment to receive a tip. And doing so would only result in forcing the hotel staff into an uncomfortable situation that would be awkward for everybody. This actually has changed in certain places as the years have gone by. For example, I didn't bring up China at first because there's actually now some places attached to China where tipping is becoming more acceptable, because the places are becoming more, I guess you could say, westernized. In addition to China, there are now some places in Japan, restaurants for example, where tipping may actually be acceptable as well. So the view on tipping has seemed to change quite a bit throughout history. And in fact, tipping seemed to first appear in around the 1850s. Although I'm not really sure if the Americans or the Europeans started it, but it did appear to begin around this time. And at first, many restaurants were against it. They considered it condescending or perhaps classist, and it appears at first Europe was quite against it. In America, however, it seemed to have gone the other direction. It seemed to begin to gain some adoption. However, during or in between the years 1915 and 1918, six states temporarily banned the ability for people to tip. The view on tipping does seem to be linked with Western culture, and I would imagine as time goes on, these places such as Japan or South Korea may eventually change their view on tipping to be more acceptable. All in all, I would say that tipping has been very beneficial to our society and to our culture. According to the Policy Institute, a nonprofit think tank, they say that the poverty rate among restaurant workers is significantly lower in states are required to pay minimum wage as a base salary. So it would appear that these workers who get a base salary and are able to get a tip on top of that actually do quite well for themselves. And so if you were to take away the ability for them to get a tip, the poverty rate among those workers would seem to shoot up quite a bit. And also on a personal note, tipping has been incredibly beneficial to even my own life and to the lives of others who are in the same line of work as me, food delivery. You know, it gave me the ability to quit my job and focus on school and kind of set my own hours because now I can go out, I can make deliveries, and the tips that I receive allow me to live the kind of life I want to live while being able to focus on the things that are important to me. And I know that's not just a benefit to me. It's also a benefit to anybody who uses that opportunity to better themselves. Back in history, it also appears that it was also a benefit to slaves that were first freed and began to look for work. Many of them would not be paid an average salary, but according to Carrie Seagrave in Tipping, an American Social History of Gratitudes, these new freed slaves were able to find work and were able to be tipped for their work. So there's many instances throughout history where tipping has been beneficial.